Yo guys, welcome back to LeadFoot TV. Today we are doing 5 forgotten naturally aspirated Japanese gems, so make sure you stay tuned to see what makes the list. Yo guys, welcome back to LeadFoot TV. Today we're doing 5 forgotten naturally aspirated cars to come out of Japan. And yeah, basically got this idea when I was trying to think about a track car that I could have. Eventually settled on the MX-5 that I'm in now. But yeah, when I was trying to think of naturally aspirated Japanese cars that I could use as a track car, it came to my attention that it's very difficult to think of any other cars other than Hondas. Yeah, the Honda and just their VTEC engine just seem to absolutely dominate the naturally aspirated market. Obviously with them coming out with some absolutely mega cars. Like, I'm a big Honda fan, but I have done it to death, and I was trying to think of something else that I could do just so that I could have a bit of a new experience. But yeah, they've had some awesome cars, obviously, like the flagship being the NSX and stuff like the S2000, the Civic Type R, the Integra Type R, all absolutely awesome cars. But once I started thinking about it, there are some really good naturally aspirated cars made by some of the other manufacturers, and yeah, Honda did make some really cool cars before they started with the VTEC engine as well. So yeah, I've picked 5 really cool non-VTEC Japanese cars, basically. I've not put them in any specific order. I think it's very difficult to pick which one's better than the other, because there's some really good cars on this list. So yeah, let's kick it off with number 5. So number 5 on the list is the Mitsubishi Mirage Asti RX. Bit of a mouthful, but you probably will have never ever heard of one of these cars unless you played on Gran Turismo 2 or 1. One of the early ones anyway. It was on one or 2, Gran Turismo 1 or 2. It came with a 1.6 Mavec engine, or Myvec, however you want to say it, and it pushed out 173 horsepower, which is actually a little bit more than the 1.6 VTEC engines that Honda were producing at the time, like the B16A. Yeah, really cool little car. It's a bit of a weird concept. It's like got like a Lancer back end with a Mitsubishi Colt or Mirage front end. It's a really unique looking car, and I think it's, for some reason, just not very popular. I think they're a great looking car. They also made a hatchback version which was called the Cyborg, which is also a very cool car, but I think a lot of people seem to know about them more than the Asti. So yeah, that is why I picked the Mitsubishi Mirage Asti RX as my number 5. So number 4 on my list is the AE111 Toyota 11 BZR. I think it's very forgotten, this car, basically because it was a follow-on from the AE86, and they made it front-wheel drive, which I think upset quite a lot of people at the time. When I was doing a bit of research about the car for the list, I noticed a lot of people getting angry about it on really old forum posts and stuff. So I think that was partially why it didn't do so well. But when you think about the car not as a follow-on from the AE86, it's actually a great car. Came very well equipped, so it had a 6-speed gearbox, LSD, and it came with the famous 4AGE 1.6 20 valve engine from Toyota, which actually came on individual throttle bodies from the factory as well. Absolutely awesome car. The engine puts out 163 horsepower. It's not a massive amount of power, but it's very unique engine setup. For the time, for it to come with a 6-speed gearbox is pretty impressive, and an LSD out of the factory. And I just think they're a great looking car. I've always wanted one of these. I really regret not picking one up when you could pick them up for like £1,000 or more, because nobody wanted one. But yeah, they're a great looking car, and I've always really liked them. So yeah, that is why I've picked number 4 as the Toyota 11 BZR. So number 3 on my list is a choice of 2 really. They're both Hondas, but they shared the same chassis and engine, which is why I've kind of picked both of them. So it is the first generation CRX or the third generation Civic. They shared pretty much the same chassis. It wasn't very much different. So it came with a 1.6 twin cam engine, which was known as the ZC1 or the D16A1, depending on where you were. It came with 125 horsepower, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it actually had a lot more torque than the later B16 engines that Honda produced. No VTEC, but it was a great little engine. They take an absolute hammering, and yeah, just a really cool little car. They both had quite a weird suspension setup. So it was a torsion bar setup on the front and a beam axle on the back, which sounds absolutely terrible, but it actually worked very well. A lot of people in America I know use them as autocross cars because they're really nimble and they're agile and they handle very well. The first generation CRX was a bit more available. I know they sold them in the UK and Japan and America and a few other countries, whereas the Civic SI that came with the ZC1 engine was actually only available in Japan, and it's incredibly rare. My friend Merce actually tagged me in one a few weeks ago that was for sale on eBay, and I really wanted to buy it, but I just wasn't in the position, and I know I won't get the opportunity to do it again, which is really annoying because it was the only one in the UK. That there is literally one of them in the UK. So I missed out on that, and I was really disappointed because yeah, the third generation Civic SI would be in my dream car garage. But yeah, really cool cars, often very overlooked because of the later model Civics being a lot more successful. So yeah, that is why I've picked the third generation Civic and the first generation CRX as my number 3 choice. So number 2 on my list is another Mitsubishi. It is the Mitsubishi FTO GPX. Came with a 6A12 engine, which is a 2-litre V6 with MIVEC, which is basically like a similar version of Honda's VTEC. And yeah, pushed 197 horsepower standard, which is not too shabby for a small little sports car. I personally didn't like the look of these cars for quite a long time, but I think they've aged incredibly well, and I actually really like the look of them now. They've aged very well. Yeah, they sound incredible, really good sounding engine. Yeah, and just often very overlooked. So yeah, that is why I've picked the Mitsubishi FTO GPX as my number 2 choice. So my number 1 choice is the P11 Nissan Prima TEV. It's quite advanced for its time. It came with a 6-speed gearbox and an SR20 VE engine with 188 horsepower. The difference being the VE is for the variable valve timing rather than the DE that we got in the Primera GT and the Almera GTI. So yeah, it came with a bit more power. It was 188 horsepower instead of the 150 that we got in the UK. They're quite rare in the UK, but when I did a bit of research, you can actually still import them quite easily from Japan. There's loads of them available on the auction sites. So yeah, bit of a strange car. They also put the SR20 VE into the Ortec Nissan Silvia S15 and the Pulsar VZR as well. So there is 2 other chassis options if you wanted to go for something else. I just really like the Primera. I think it's just it's a very iconic car with British touring cars and Japanese touring cars. It was actually the Primera TEV that was the next car Nissan used in Japanese touring cars after the Nissan Skyline. So yeah, quite an iconic chassis, and yeah, just a really cool car, something you don't see very often over here. And like I say, you can still import them if you were wanting to get one. So yeah, that is why I've picked the P11 Primera TEV as my number 1 choice. So that is my 5 forgotten Japanese naturally aspirated cars. If there's anything you think I might have forgotten, leave it down in the comments down below. There's a few cars that I thought were worth a mention, one of them being the Toyota Celica T-Sport, another great little engine with 190 horsepower, and the Corolla T-Sport as well. Yeah, both great cars and fair amount of power. I just don't think they're very forgotten yet. They're still quite fresh in people's memory because they're not as old as some of the cars I've got on the list. But yeah, definitely underappreciated. People don't modify them as much as they should do. So those two are definitely worth mentioning. If you think there's anything else that I should have mentioned in the list, make sure you drop it down in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like. And if you aren't subscribed already, subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. It helps the channel out massively. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Peace out.